Welcome to the Blitz Take episode. Blitz Take podcast. I am here with Coach on SI, Jake Arthur, and happy to have him on to talk about the Indianapolis Colts and what to expect for this season. So welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Sorry about that. My first question is, what are your thoughts on the schedule for the season?
Yeah, it's a tough one early on. I think they've got a few AFC South games early on. I think it's like 5 within the first half, or like first 7 or so weeks. That's pretty tough. The first home game, week 3 against the Chiefs. So that's one right there that you kind of have circled. It's going to be tough. The Colts tend to have a hard time for like the last decade winning on week 1. So they're really trying to do their best to put that first win in their pocket 1 week into it, because slow starts have just really unfortunately been something that's plagued them a little bit. They already know Houston Texans week 1. That's not one that you can just discount. Like, for example, the Jaguars, who were considered the worst team in the league last year, they lost to them and barely even showed up off the bus in a must-win game to get to the playoffs in week 18. So that being the last time we've seen them on the field, they know well and good not to take it easy on the Texans.
So my next question is, what were your thoughts on what the Colts did in this past year's draft?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty intriguing draft class. Not necessarily names that popped off the board, but you could clearly see what they were going for was just high upside and athleticism. Going through the whole list, Pierce, Woods, Ryman, all those guys, it's really intriguing what they did, because if you go by the relative athletic scores, which is, kind of a measurement of players' size and athleticism scores, the Colts had 9.5 or better as an average for each of these players. So a really historically athletic class. It looks like they'll have some early contributions, just going off of what we've seen in camp so far through 3 practices. Alec Pierce, it looks like he's going to compete to be a starter in 3 receiver sets. Jelani Woods has gotten a lot of work with the first and second teams. Bernard Ryman may not start right away, but he's definitely in the mix for left tackle right now. Nick Cross probably is going to start right away at strong safety. For the Colts, they had Kari Willis, who retired shortly after the draft, and so it looks like Cross is going to get thrown into the crosshairs, so to speak. So that's a good one to look for. So they should have a lot of contributions early from this draft class.
What do you think about how the defense will do this year?
Yeah, they made some really nice moves on the defensive side of the ball. Of course, you kind of have to start with the fact they're moving on in a new direction with their defensive coordinator. Matt Eberflus, of course, went on to be the head coach of the Bears, and they're welcoming in Gus Bradley, who has, just as more name recognition, really, coming in. The base scheme is going to be somewhat similar still with the 4-3 setup, but there should be more man-to-man coverage this time around. The coverage is probably going to be more cover 3 than it was a soft cover 2 previously. So I think we're going to see Julian Blackmon, for example, at free safety really capitalize as that single high guy. And the pass rush should really be better, I would think. Adding someone like Yannick Ngakoue, who's been one of the most consistent pass rushers since I think 2016 is when he came into the league. That's a huge boost. They're expecting improvements from Kwity Paye and Daya Adangbo, so that's great. The linebacker group needs no introduction, led by Shaquille Leonard now, formerly Darius Leonard. And then adding a guy like Stephon Gilmore, that's huge. So far through camp, he looks healthy, and he looks like the guy that most people know him to be, rather than the one who was beat up and not quite on top of his game the last year or two.
What are your thoughts on Matt Pryor?
Matt Pryor, that's a tricky situation there, because this is going to be his first season starting as a left tackle. Throughout his career, he's mostly just been kind of the next man up off the bench. We did see him at left tackle a little bit last year. He got the start against the Raiders and actually did good against Yannick Ngakoue in that game. So far, so good. I mean, they've got to throw the pads on this week in training camp, but he's an athletic guy. You know, he's got pretty good size. So there's no reason not to think he can't do it.
Mhm.
The only question is, from the Colts perspective, what do they want to do with Bernard Raymond in that sense? Because Pryor's on a 1-year deal. If he looks really good at left tackle, I mean, you kind of have to let that roll. You know, you don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to move on from a strong left tackle. But maybe that shifts Bernard Raymond over to right guard eventually. It's tough. It would be a really good problem for them if Pryor looked the part.
Uh, did you think that the Carson Wentz trade was good for you guys, or do you think that he should have stayed with the Colts?
Yeah, I think that was necessary for them to move on and get better as a team. They kind of saw what they needed to from him. And you know, you I'm sure are very well aware of kind of the roller coaster ride that is Carson Wentz.
Mhm.
There's a lot of highs, a lot of lows. But throughout the second half of the season, Jonathan Taylor really heated up, but the
Mhm.
opportunity was there for him to, because it seemed like the Colts were hiding Carson a little bit. They knew they couldn't have games left in his hands. He just kind of kept making the same mistakes. And it was just necessary. They really needed a strong leader and someone who was gonna be steady week to week. Someone like Matt Ryan, that's a really big upgrade for them, because you're getting an elite leader and you're
Mhm.
getting someone whose week to week floor is just not going to be as bad as Carson's was. It's hard to game plan when you don't know what you're going to get from the quarterback position. And so he's not a bad player. He's just wildly inconsistent. And for the Colts, they just needed something a little more steady than that.
Uh, what? Uh, so have you been to the training camp uh, facility or the
Yeah.
outside part of it?
Yeah. So they have theirs out at a sports complex about 20-25 minutes north of them.
Mhm.
I've been out there 2 of the 3 days so far. I had something I had to do on Saturday, but no, I'm fortunate enough to be a credentialed member of the media there. So I should be there every day the rest of the camp going through August. So it's been nice to see what they got so far, and we're really looking forward to seeing them actually putting on pads this coming week.
What day do they put on the pads?
I think so. Their next practice is Tuesday this week. I
Mhm.
think they'll probably have pads on then. They've been trying to get the guys eased into camp a little bit and
Mhm.
make it look a little more like a game day week during the regular season. So they had practice last Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and then they
Mhm.
had Sunday and today, Monday off, and they'll get back to it Tuesday. So I think they wanted to have those guys get their feet wet a little bit before they threw pads on, which I think should be again Tuesday.
Are you going to be there for every preseason game?
All the home games. I think 2 of their
Mhm.
3 preseason games are at home. I don't travel to cover them right now. I just kind of hang at home and cover it from my house when they travel. But yeah, I should be there for their home games.
uh, any standout stories as of now during how training camp is going?
Do you say were there surprises or what was that?
Like, yeah, as of now, standout stories.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
who
yeah.
stood out?
Yeah, so far, someone who always seems to stand out is Paris Campbell at
Mhm.
wide receiver. Right now, if you're looking at who the Colts starting 3 receivers might be, of course, Michael Pittman Jr., but then Paris Campbell and Alec Pierce, the rookie's really making a push. Campbell looks great. You know, he's really quick. He's got the long speed. His route running is really precise, and he's usually got
Mhm.
pretty sure hands. Made a really nice catch in double coverage on Saturday night where he had to jump up and beat a couple guys for it. The issue with him, of course, has just always been health. The guy just really, he's had some terrible luck when it comes to injuries throughout his career. But when he's on the field, he looks phenomenal usually. So that's continued to be the case. Um, I don't think we can really chalk up any linemen quite yet just because of the
Mhm.
pads. But other than that, Stephon Gilmore has been a pleasant surprise at corner. Well, not surprise, but like I said earlier, you're seeing him being closer to the guy we know and love as the all pro bowler type of guy. But then Julian Blackman, his season ended last year about midway through. He had an Achilles injury, and those are really tough to come back from. But he started training camp with everybody else. He didn't have to be on any injured lists, and he's looked really good so far. He has the range. He's showing that he can jump off of that injured Achilles, so he looks great. That one truly is a pleasant surprise. And then Nick Cross right next to him, the rookie who appears to be in the driver's seat for the starting strong safety spot. He's looking really good as well. He had an interception off Matt Ryan in the 7-on-7s. Like, I think it was Ryan's second pass of the day. It was a really nice play that he made. He tipped the ball and then dove and intercepted it before he hit the ground.
So my next question is, what do you expect the division to be like? And do you think that it's going to be tight or wide open for one team?
Yeah, so I expect the division to be kind of come down to how it has the last few years, where it's the Colts and the Titans kind of battling at the top of it for most of the season. I think the Jaguars and Texans will be better than a lot of teams think, but I don't think they'll be in contention for the division crown. It always seems in recent years that it's the Colts and Titans battling to see who's going to win the division over the last 3-4 weeks of the season, and I expect it to be the same here. This time I do think it's got to be the Colts that win it. There's a lot of expectations, and the Titans are a very good football team. Their roster is really well rounded, but there's not much excuse for the Colts to miss the playoffs. Like that, they have to make the playoffs, but they should also be able to win the division once again for the first time since Andrew Luck was around.
What do you think the reaction will be in Indianapolis when Carson Wentz makes his trip there in late October?
Yeah, so I expect some boos just because he's the former quarterback, and he was a great guy. He wasn't a jerk or anything like that, but there's always going to be some fans that boo and everything. But yeah, I think I don't know. I think overall though, no one's going to be nasty towards him, I'm sure, but the stadium will be excited to see the Colts play him, and they're surely going to hope that they get the really inconsistent Carson Wentz in that one. He might make a couple of wow throws like he always does, but I'm sure the fans will be ready and waiting for an interception or two.
Yeah, it should be very interesting to see how the Colts play this year. And thank you so much for taking the time to come on. And I'll definitely have you back on to recap a game or something down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Take care.
Thanks.